I've worked with so many really exceptional experts in our industry who have more expertise, more years of experience. They truly are more talented than some of their competition, but you would never know it because they do not have a strong media presence. Hey, beautiful friend. If you're a longtime listener of the podcast who's been dying to work with me but hasn't pulled the trigger yet, I have an incredible opportunity to work with me for a fraction of the cost. If your estheticians can't explain your signature plans or your new injectors panic every time they have to sell a high-ticket consult, it's not their fault. It's the system, or more specifically, your lack of one. That's exactly why I built Ask Heather AI, the first strategist level tool for aesthetic and wellness CEOs who want to scale with precision and stop flying by the seat of their pants. Inside, you get 3 powerful tools, each designed to solve the exact gaps that keep your growth tied to you. Turn your basic menu into a branded high-ticket signature offer suite your whole team can sell. Train every team member to lead premium consults with confidence, even if they've never sold a thing. Write magnetic messaging that attracts premium patients without sounding like every other clinic online. These are the same frameworks we've used to scale clinics to 7 figures and beyond, and they used to cost 5 figures to access. Now, you can have them in your back pocket. Try Ask Heather AI for 30 days and see what happens when you stop guessing and start scaling with words that work. Head over to heathertrevine.com/trial to learn more. Well, hello, my beautiful friend. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Recently, my husband and I were just talking about how we have, many of you who've listened for a long time know that we have 3 daughters, okay? One of my daughters is a rising junior in high school, and she's an artist. She's actually a really talented artist, and I'm going to shout out her art business. It's a nonprofit. It's actually a 501(c)(3) that is called Art for Art, and you can find her on Instagram at artforart.co. I will double check that and make sure we get the right link in the show notes. I think that is the actual handle. And she is really passionate about art. And so she decided that she wanted to raise money so that kids in need can have art and have, because it's expensive. Like getting really great supplies for art is actually really expensive. And it has impacted her life so much from a emotional standpoint, like the creativity she's found has helped her when it comes to just joy and like having a creative outlet. And she actually researches all these different studies about kids and art and how creativity and art for kids is just so impactful. And what are the first things that get cut when, a school system or what have you, if you're a family that is just living paycheck to paycheck, trying to make ends meet or what have you, what's the first thing that gets cut out are art supplies and things that are, it costs money to actually create art. And so she created a nonprofit called Art for Art, and she does pet portraits, hand-done watercolored pet portraits. She does some other portraits as well too, and she raises money for art kits for kids. Okay, so when you invest in one of her portraits, you can also just donate money for art kits too if you don't have a pet or some sort of portrait. What's interesting is she created her own Shopify store. She is my like non-social media kid. Okay, so we don't let our kids have social media until they get to high school, and then they can have some moderate amounts of social media. And when she got to high school, she decided that she just didn't want it anyways. It just wasn't her jam. She's like a total old soul in that way. But when she decided she wanted to do this charity that she's really passionate about, there was no way around it that she needed to have a social media presence. And especially since it was art too, it was such a visual thing. Okay, so that's happening with my oldest. And then my middle daughter is really wanting to play softball in college. And, we recently started learning about she's a rising freshman. So she's going to be a freshman in high school. And what we discovered as we started doing more research, now my husband played Division I baseball and also played professionally through AAA with the Braves and the Mariners. And so much has changed in the however many years, it's like over 25 years since my husband was in high school looking to play in college. And what Bryce and I were talking about is even just 15 years ago, even maybe just 10 years ago, Sydney looking to play a college sport, Reese looking to grow a nonprofit charity around something she's really passionate about, it wouldn't have been necessary. Well, it wouldn't have even been available 15 years ago to actually have a media presence, right? And now there is no way around it. There's no way around it. And so today's episode is about why every practice, clinic, med spa needs a media arm and how to think about building one for yourself without the overwhelm. And, I've worked with so many really exceptional experts in our industry who have more expertise, more years of experience. They truly are more talented than some of their competition, but you would never know it because they do not have a strong media presence, okay? And so, 10, 15 years ago, it was like a nice to have. Well, 15 years ago, they didn't even have social media marketing. We had websites, if you will. We had YouTube probably. But now I hate to say that it's critical, right? But I think for those of you who want to be thought leaders, who want to be seen as experts, who want to build a brand, you have to have a media presence, okay? And there's so many benefits to it. But what I was talking about with Bryce is I had this real big aha moment last week. Obviously, I think all of my clients should have this. I am really doubling down on my brand, doubling down on how I produce content. If you don't see me because you're just listening, I'm in a room with Good in Media, who I hired to help with my podcast production and video production because I'm all in on building up my brand with my media presence right now. And it is critical, right? But it goes way beyond this. Almost every industry, if you look at my daughters, wanting to play a sport in college or creating a nonprofit, it hit me that there's no way around it. Having a media presence is equivalent to having a, point of sale, is equivalent to having a website, right? Is equivalent to having a phone, which is back in the day what you used to have to call to make an appointment or what have you. Some of you don't even have that anymore, and that's all fine and good. But it is become a have to have, not a nice to have. And so in this episode, I kind of wanted to unpack that. If you're a owner or a provider where you have, kind of been dipping your toe, and by dipping your toe, I call this, having curb appeal, right? You have gone out and at least made sure you have the basics of your digital real estate dialed in, right? You're I invested in having my website look good. And then I invested in having the bare bones of an Instagram presence or wherever else you've decided to have a presence social media wise as well. There's that, right? And so that used to be something that even 5 years ago, I would have said you need to at least to have curb appeal. You need to at least have a media presence that has curb appeal. So that way, if somebody's searching, has found you through referral, if you're running ads, when they come to check you out and they go to your different places of digital real estate, whether that's your website or social media, you actually have what we call curb appeal in place with curb appeal content and a visual presence that is appealing to the premium patient or client that you're looking to actually attract. Now I would say that it goes beyond that. Okay. So that if that was level one, now I really encourage all my clients to really think about how they are going to produce media consistently. Okay. This is going to help small business brands really create the type of brand equity in your local community and even beyond your local community that is going to drive so much more profits and revenue for your business. And the reason why is the more, like we talked about in a recent episode about brand equity, building up media is one huge domino that helps you build up your brand equity. And so when we think about building up your media, let's talk about what that can look like. First of all, let's look at some other industries of examples where historically every industry didn't have a media presence, but I think of like Studio McGee, okay? You look at like interior design, another industry that is a very visual industry. You think of somebody like Studio McGee, you can go check them out if you don't already know who I'm talking about, who now has an HGTV show and a really popular YouTube channel. They have a whole they have their own brand. I think they're in Target now as well too, but they really built up and booked out their interior design, which was their core business, was just interior design services, through building up media. And she did this so quickly that there were lots of interior designers. And the reason why I like using this example is before when this is years ago. I'm trying to think what year. This is years ago. Anyways, I wrote, I was a writer for a really large online digital media company. I actually covered home. So I covered home design and I interviewed all the top designers in the world, from those who were like celebrity designers that had shows, to the top bloggers and to the designers you would see in like Architectural Digest. So I'm actually really familiar with this industry. And they were able to explode their authority and their growth, even for their interior design services, because they doubled down on video, okay? They doubled down on documenting what they were doing and creating really good video and distributing that video really effectively, okay? There's so many other industries you could probably even think of right now. And the reason why I shared Studio McGee specifically is like they didn't even exist when I was covering design. And they have literally outpaced all of the designers that I interviewed years ago. And so why is that? It's not because they had the most experience. They hadn't even been in the industry that long. It was because they doubled down on having a media presence. So I want to go over some high impact mindset shifts I want you to have when you think about, okay, Heather's telling me I need to have this media presence. I have kind of been seeing it and what have you. One of the things I want you to keep in mind, I want you to think of like, how can I create media easily? How can I create video specifically? Let's not even use the word media anymore. How can I create video consistently and effortlessly in my practice or clinic when I'm not a professional content creator? Okay. Problem with following professional content creators is that they are professional content creators and their entire days are wrapped around creating content. And so this is why I like to use examples of other industries where they're actually doing a service, working with clients like a Studio McGee. They had to build out their business. They weren't just like showing their own home, right? They were actually delivering a service at the same time as they were producing content about the service that they did. And that's, why they blew up. They also had, they were talented, right? She is a great designer. I'm just talking about how quickly she was able to outpace other brilliant designers who didn't invest the time to double down on actually creating video. So, mindset shift number one, everything you do can be content. Okay. Like really thinking about, okay, looking at the week, what you and your team are doing each week. Stop making it complicated. How can you make it easier for you and your team to produce content with what you are already doing every single week? You know, a consult question, a patient win, a client objection, that is all content. And what's beautiful about it is when you really look at it through the filter of who do we want to attract more of? And you think to yourself, okay, so we had this type of patient or client who had this win. We know that we want to attract more of this person. How can we use that in our content to back end engineer that we want to attract more of that human, right? So you want to actually be strategic with the content. But in the beginning, for many of you, I don't even want you to overthink it because you just need to get the reps in of starting to produce the content. Lean systems over perfect production. This trips up so many of you. This is why I don't love it when you follow professional content creators. They're great because they have some great videos because they literally spend all their time creating videos about creating videos. But some of their production tools, their setups aren't realistic for you. Okay. So you want to have a really easy, lean production system that is easy for you and your team to just create content around what you are already doing every single week inside of your clinics. Your media, your video should echo your offers. Okay. So your signature menu items, your CSPs and BMOs, as I like to call them, right, that are from your signature menu. How can you make sure that when things are happening inside of your clinics each week, how can you actually capture that, especially when it's associated with certain packages, programs, and plans that you actually want to get more bookings of as well too. And it's a great time to actually educate somebody. Like let's say you have somebody who came in and they were complaining of X, Y, and Z, right? Whatever that might be. And then they signed up. So let's say it's your acne and they have cystic acne and they had tried these things already for their acne. And then they were a perfect fit for your XYZ acne bootcamp. Right? Sharing that content. Yes, we want to like capture the case study before and after in an ideal setting. Yes. But in the meantime, just getting that content out that will be like a dog whistle for the other people who are watching that have those exact problems around that acne. So like really actually, that's what I mean by strategic. Thinking about who, and then thinking about what, and then thinking about sharing the actual story. Okay. One of the things that honestly is probably even my Achilles heel, and it's the Achilles heel for many of you. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about production, like how can we consistently create production of videos? So how can we make sure that yourself and your team can do this? So pulling this into your weekly huddles with your team, for those of you who are doing this with team members, helping them, actually bringing them into the ideation and also like having them come into like, okay, so how can we capture more video? I see a lot of video production. This is fine too, to have some of this, but I see many of you actually being too heavy-handed on kind of like the trends. Those are great sometimes. In fact, this dentist office that is in like the East Valley here in Phoenix, they have been doing these hilarious videos that are based on trends, but they've done them very, very well, if you will, and they've gone viral. But I think that those are hard to do well. And some of you spend too much time on trying to do that or trying to chase the trends. Those are nice to haves. I 100% know that the type of content I just shared with you about the one that actually is meant for your real clients and patients, that 10 out of 10 works. trying to chase the trending audios and chasing the trends, sometimes that can work, right? Like I think we have this survivorship bias when we look at things like Dollar Shave Club, who creatively built their entire business on crazy humorous videos. There are so many examples of that where it doesn't work, where I know that if you create content with your best clients and patients in mind, you create videos around that, you create content around that, that always works. That always works, okay? And it's also easier to do as well. So how can you consistently create content with what you're already doing every week? And then, like I said, the Achilles heel, okay? So you need to be able to, step one is step one is really understanding who are the humans you want to attract more of. And then what are the signature offers that you have that you want to become known for that serve those humans? And then we want to produce video content with those humans in mind. And then we want like 70 to 80% of our content to be with those humans in mind and those offers in mind. And then yes, 20 to 30% of your content can be where you're experimenting with trends, where you're doing personality infused content that maybe showcases your personality more as well directly. Okay, so that's number one. And number one and number two. And then number three, that is my Achilles heel and the Achilles heel for many of you, is how are you going to distribute the content consistently in a way where you're maximizing how it is repurposed through all of your digital real estate, okay? So if it's Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and then you have an email list, and then you have a website, how can we ensure that the video content that you're creating is being properly distributed? I shouldn't even say the word properly, just like you're maximizing the distribution of it consistently. And one thing I was coaching a client on just this past week is she was feeling like she's repeating herself a lot. And I told her, I'm like, you 100% are going to feel like you're repeating yourself a lot. And I want to give you all permission to repeat yourself a lot because the best brands have really consistent messaging. Doesn't mean they are repeating what they're saying the same exact way every single time they say it, but the core messaging, the core who they're talking to, what they do, and how they help them is going to be consistent. And the way we actually differentiate and get novelty into the content is by pulling in the different storylines, pulling in the different prisms, the different metaphors, the different analogies. Like even this episode, this isn't the first time you've heard from Heather that she thinks you should be producing video and that having a really strong media presence will help build your brand and all this stuff. But I shared it through a different lens at the top of this episode by sharing the stories of both of my daughters who are doing it in different ways, but how it's further emphasizing the fact that no matter what you do in life now, in most cases, unless you're like a coder who's just been hired by Apple to code in a room somewhere, you will need to know how to produce video, how to edit video, or how to hire people to edit video, and how to have a visual presence for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish in your life. So this is one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about the Ask Heather AI tool that we've created, because it helps with your content production. It helps you with the ideation of your content. It helps you actually be able to create signature signature products, signature packages, plans, if you will, and really articulate in a way that is going to actually resonate in your content as well too. So we have a trial right now of the AI. If you're interested in testing it out, you can go to heathertrevine.com/trial. I'll also link it up in the show notes as well too. That is what I have for you this week, my friend. I will see you next week.